Tonight is Tuesday, February the 11th, and the year 2020 at 6 p.m. This is the Master Plan Review Committee. Let's call the roll.
Ms. Johnson is absent. Mr. Sadler.
Here.
Ms. King.
Here.
Mr. Burns.
Here.
Mr. Carroll is absent. Mr. Abrams is absent. Mr. Semino.
Here.
Ms. Dyson Norris.
Here.
And Mr. Jeff Moore.
Here.
Item number 3, about 6 weeks ago, give or take, me and Mr. Dominic Abrams had met with Mr. Mark Harrell about securing some grants. We talked to him about it. He came to this committee back last year around June, give or take, and explained to this committee how you get grants, okay, and getting grants to update the master plan and drainage grants. And we had a meeting with him in his office, and he explained to us that he needed white papers, so to speak, on why we needed these grants, so he could put this information into his grant request. So we had our meeting last month. We didn't have a quorum, but we kind of brainstormed, and I have to compliment Ms. Kay. She sent me some information by email, and Ms. Judy had given me some stuff, and I gleaned, and we also talked to some other people. I know I talked to Shane Mack that Sunday before the Super Bowl a long time, and some engineers in the parish and on the master drainage plan. Anyway, we got together with some stuff and brought it back to Mr. Mark back Wednesday, a week ago. And he was okay with all of it. He said that some of it he might not put in a grant request, but he was okay with the $250,000 that we're asking. This is he explained to me this is a HUD state grant, not necessarily from HUD. And he was okay with all the stuff that we come up with on the update of the 2013 Livingston Parish Master Plan. All of y'all got a copy through email? Did everybody have a chance to read it?
Yes, sir. It looked very good.
I won't go over all of it, but a lot has changed in the parish in 2013. Especially since the August of 2016 flood, that the demographic changes in the parish, that a lot of the subdivisions have shifted south of I-12 and some north, all the way up to on Highway 447 or Spring Lake is probably close to 1,000-acre subdivisions in there. So they're not building as many subdivisions in the areas that flooded in 2016. They're doing some. I know one there on Florida Boulevard between Juban and Dental Springs, but for the most part, the demographic changes. And when you have changes in where the subdivisions are being built and commercial that follows them, you have to update infrastructure requirements to feed these new subdivisions. So if they've changed, then you have to update the master plan to show infrastructure feeding them, road, sewer, water, etc. And we went into zoning a little bit, unbridled, uncontrolled commercial, residential growth in the parish. We're not trying to do zoning. This is just a white paper to give to him so he can put in the grant request of why zoning is needed, okay? If the parish ever goes to zoning, then that will be a political decision, okay, by the parish council and the parish president and this board and others to go forward on that. But you got to get a grant first to update the master plan and implement zoning, okay, if the parish wants to do that. And if you want to have zoning in selected areas of the parish. And item on the zoning, item 4, I kind of penciled that in, and I explained to him why that let me just say, all the things that we've mentioned, like salvage yards and trucking companies and sawmills and so forth, that is really, people in Livingston Parish need those businesses. That is a commercial, but we need those for economic growth. We need a place to bring our junk cars to and batteries, and we need trucking companies. We need all these things. It's just where do you need them? That was the only point, okay? And I didn't list everything. I just listed a few for his information. And we updated it to include the 14 road projects that we come up with, this committee did, in the economic corridor, and where we met with all 3 MPO members, Mr. Leighton Ricks and the mayor of Walker and the mayor of Dillon. And we listed that in the request to get funding as a reason why. So we listed that in there. And preservation of right-of-ways for future road projects. Of course, enable the parish eventually to hire a full-time planner. Y'all got any questions about that? You guys? Nathan? Jason? No? The other one was the Livingston Parish Master Drainage Plan. We're asking for $500,000 to do a parish-wide master drainage plan. And I just broke it down. Livingston Parish has a mass, land mass of 703 square miles, and Livingston Parish Drainage District 1, 2, and 5, which is on the western side of the parish, they're funded. That's taxpayers funded for their drainage projects. But the rest of the parish, District 6 and 7, is 563 square miles, and about 80% of Livingston Parish is not taxpayer funded. So how do you get taxpayer funding for those districts? Where does that money come from? So there's a lot of ideas been floating around. I've heard people talking about how you might do that, but that ain't what we're trying to do tonight. We're trying to get the money to get the grant to do the plan, the master plan. And then when you do the master plan, then all the other things, all the ideas that I've been hearing about how you do that stuff, we'll have public hearings on that. Either you guys will, or we will, or somebody else will, or the consultants will, like we done the original master plan. So we got a real problem with drainage in the parish and funding District 6 and 7. And there's many more ideas here that he's going to put into the grant request. I did talk to an engineer in this parish, and didn't want his name out. He was going to do or provide an abbreviated project scope of work pro bono,
For what?
but pro bono.
For a drainage
drainage?
master plan?
Yeah. Now, what they consist of, I don't know. Maybe y'all know. Anyway, it's something that Mr. Mark said would be helpful to get somebody to do that. So we talked to one, and he said, yeah, we'd do it, as long as you don't mention my name.
So it's something
Sure.
something you could attach to the,
Absolutely.
It's it will
Grant
go
process.
in the grant request. That's why he's doing that, okay? There's more than one type. There's an abbreviated and there's a long version. They can do the abbreviated version, okay? To put in the grant request. Any more, y'all got any questions on that? Okay, got anything?
No, I mean, I would think if you have an engineer that's willing to do that, I think that's incredible. I mean, it's a scope of work. It's just something that they would know that the rest of us wouldn't know. You know, saying, well, what exactly is going to be included in this drainage plan? Is it going to be
Well, I
all the
think,
waterways or the, you know, and so for them to be
I don't
able to
know,
say whatever they think is
That
the
would
correct
be something
thing.
y'all would want to see in the grant
Absolutely.
request.
I mean, I don't know how to do a scope of work on a drainage
Well, I
master
don't
plan. So, I mean,
but
finding somebody who
engineers-
does, who's willing to do
Engineers
it.
do that all the time,
Right, that's what I'm saying. They
and
could,
they know what to do.
yeah, they
They
probably
got
already have it.
volunteers.
Yeah.
What would be the downside of that? I don't see a downside of that. What would be the downside of him doing that?
I don't see any. Hey,
I mean, basically, we can look at it and see if it's what we have in our mind as to what you want in a master drainage plan. You know, like
I
what,
don't-
you know, like, cause I mean, when they're looking at a master drainage plan, I mean, how specific could it be? You know, for that amount of money, if they're doing it for an entire parish. So you have to just make sure that what, the scope of work is what we actually need as
well,
the
it's
Mason parish,
abbreviated,
you
he
know?
explained to me it would be an abbreviated scope of work.
Right, I mean, they couldn't
just to
do a
put-
full-blown study every single
No,
waterway in the
no.
parish for
It
that
could
amount
be
of
so
money.
simple as routine maintenance of the canals, to where
Right,
you can
so,
do
I
a
mean-
yearly check.
Right, so we just have to look at that scope of work and see if that's what we're actually looking for. you
And
know?
we could go off of the stuff that just got cleaned out. You know, what was the date that they finished? 1 year from that date is when you go back in
To do the
and you
maintenance
do the
plan.
maintenance of that canal. And we get it to where it stays on a yearly routine where they're going back in these canals. To stay on top of them, because I
Yeah.
mean, literally, I have canals with trees this big around growing in the center of them.
Believe it.
They ain't been touched since the early 90s.
Do you see the amount of waterways that we have in the parish, and you'd understand why, you know? Especially when it's unfunded drainage
Yeah.
districts.
And then it's perfect timing. We're getting all these canals cleaned out. If we can roll right into maintaining them,
Maintenance. Yeah,
we could do
I
a
mean,
lot.
if we don't roll into maintaining them, I don't know that we've really helped solve the problem. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Yeah.
Like,
Right.
to do it and not maintain it, really.
it's
a
just a waste
temporary-
of money.
It's a temporary
Fix.
benefit, yeah.
And we've already seen after Katrina how quick they fill back up. I mean, they come in after Katrina and clean them out, and in no time, they were filled back up because there was no money to maintain them.
Yeah.
2016 flood, same thing, you know.
Yeah,
Everybody square
they were
one.
right back.
I had a big, yeah,
Were you, do we need to maybe request, if that's the process we'd like to ask for, would we want to ask that engineer to go at it in that direction? In other words, specifically ask him if he or she, that, could he, you know, plan to look at the, projects that are underway and then the maintenance to, maintain
I
those?
think, this is just
This is for the
abbreviated.
Yeah, I
Scope
think that would
of
come
it.
into details.
When you get the money to do the whole plan, then you'll have public hearings and input by everybody on what, when, where, and how, what road, what ditches.
We'd actually
Then
have
that's the part-
dates.
That would be the plan. We're not doing that right now. It's just trying to get the money.
Yeah, he'll probably just do something as simple as just maintain our canals.
So the whole scope of,
You know,
Somewhere I
to
got
do a
lost.
very
Yeah.
general,
the scope of work, that wrote up the original scope of work for our initial, is gonna be mainly on maintenance.
Say that again,
Somewhere I
Well,
I
not
lost-
all
of it.
Lost
No.
track of where y'all were talking about with the engineer coming in to do a scope of work, or
Yeah.
volunteering to
The
do a scope of
change.
work, but then we're talking about, you know, maintenance.
Right.
well, see, it won't, only the stuff that just got cleaned out will be maintenance. See, we got a lot of stuff that wasn't approved to be cleaned.
But you're
Right, but
talking,
the initial scope of work that we're looking for overall drainage
is the drainage
study
plan.
is gonna be, I would even think, I mean, it's gonna go beyond that from the very
I'm
beginning,
looking
trying
at
to
what
find
the-
out where's the water
Right.
flowing first, where's
Yeah.
the watersheds, because I don't believe we've ever done
Yeah,
watersheds.
this, yeah.
True
Well,
watershed
we
studies,
actually have
and
a
then find
watershed.
out, okay, where are these watersheds going, then we look at where
Right.
the
How to
drainages
do
are,
it.
and then how to maintain those.
Right.
Yeah,
Those
and I'm looking at
avenues
what our
from-
drainage districts do now that we do have this funded, they basically maintain their canals. They go
Right.
through there.
Yeah, I
They
just didn't
clean
wanna
them
jump off
out,
to,
they
like-
cut the grass.
From right here in the pyramid to down here on maintaining this, because
Yeah.
we need to, actually, the scope needs to be, hold up, we need to figure out watershed initiatives, everything else, studies from that point that has not actually been completed, to
Right.
find out how we're actually affected, then where do we divert to, or where is the water
Right.
being diverted to, and then from there,
The
how do we
solutions.
get the diversions to open up and maintain those points?
yeah.
I just
The
didn't want to, I felt like we just jumped all the way down to the
Well,
bottom.
and that was why I asked that question,
Mhm.
because Jeff said, you know, we could maintain the things that are being cleared now. And that does not seem like it would fit in the time frame. Those are gonna be overgrown, and by the time we ever
Yeah.
get
Well, I
to
mean,
that.
Well, we still gonna do our best to maintain them now, but when you don't have the funds to do it, you're limited to what you can actually do. And I mean, that's why we tried to pass the drainage in the rest of the parish to
Where
have
else are we
that.
looking are we even looking at, again, I go back to, nobody likes to be taxed to death, right? We're already at the highest tax limit across this stinking country. How is everyone else able to maintain and do? We're still a pretty rural area, you know, but we're bringing in all these new businesses, all these new developments, all these new things, and we keep spending money somewhere. Why don't we go back to kind of trimming back the fat in government first on those kind of items and trying to figure out where we need to go as far as making it a more efficient system, because we all know that the natural progress of government is to get fat and bloated and not move as much.
Well, I can tell you without letting the cat out of the bag of what we're working on, one of the things is you have to make it to where everybody pays. Everybody has to pay their fair share, which in return should make it cheaper for the ones that's paying right now. So, but the only way we can make it cheaper for the ones that are paying is everybody has to put in their fair share. So, in reality, the ones that's not paying, yeah, they're gonna have to start paying something. But that's the only way you're gonna make it fair across this parish and have a true parish-wide drainage system that we can
Well, that
make
is
work.
something that the grant that we're going after to implement a parish-wide drainage plan, and all that will be spelled out in that plan down the road. And all we're looking at is getting the grant.
Getting the grant.
Why do we need this grant? And these are all the reasons why, and getting a abbreviated scope of work to throw in there to get the grant. Then when you get the grant, then I don't know if the parish is gonna hire a consultant, engineering firm to
Do a
the master
detailed plan.
have the public hearings and everything you're talking about. How you gonna fund the whole parish? You're gonna do certain things over here and quit doing things here and start doing it here where you'll have, but that's what the master plan will address, not this, okay? This ain't what we're doing, okay? But that, we're trying to get to that goal.
Now,
That's
I
what
can
we're
tell
trying to
you,
do.
when it failed in 6 and 7, the biggest thing that came back to us was, y'all
No
didn't
plan.
have a plan.
No plan.
You was just, we unfunded, let's make a, and I was one that kind of stood up and said, hold up, we're going too fast. But everybody was freaking out from the flood just happened. You know, we gotta do whatever we kind of do. We gotta hurry up, get this funded, get it going. And I'm like, we need a plan.
Are you in District 6? Is that primarily?
I'll have them, that's me and Shane. Basically, me and Shane's
It's 6.
districts. Yes, we're
7
6.
is below.
7's below.
Down
Is
below.
that right, Sandy? I think it is.
That-
6 is above the interstate, 7 was below. I think that's how it was.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I don't know, the
Because I'm
master plan
saying
that
I'm
we're
understanding.
trying to get money for is gonna have to address all of that. I'm telling you, you're gonna have public hearings on that. You're gonna have a lot of public hearings.
And we didn't have any of that when we asked
Well,
for
you're
it the
gonna have
last
to
time.
have them. Now, whether this group has it, conducts public hearings, I don't know. Or does the parish do it? Does the engineer consultant that does the master plan, do they do it? I don't know. Somebody's gonna do it. They're
And
gonna-
that's what we gotta
You
do
will
with
hear
the
from-
grant,
you
is
got to hear
educate the
from the
people
public.
on what we're gonna
The
do.
public has to
And
have
again,
a
that's where
voice.
I'm going back to where the initial part of that study, I think, you know, the main thing, we need to find out first, where's the water go whenever it hits the ground,
Right.
right? First off, first things first, and then, once we
Watershed.
get the watershed, then we're gonna say, okay, so we have this amount of people, those are tax districts, then we're gonna go to debate with the hearings and everything else about how we allocate funds or where we get additional funds. You know, basically, and I'm not trying to get the whole political spectrum of hearing, every time I hear my fair share, I get a knee-jerk reaction because I feel like I pay well over the fair share for the people that don't,
Right.
you know, and I understand that. But again, that was part of where we keep raising sales tax, because once they come in, maybe they don't pay from the property tax perspective or that side because they're lower income, whatever.
Well-
But we think of where we get the money into the public
Well, I don't want the public to think that this body is gonna raise sales taxes on anybody. That's not what we're trying to do. And if they watch
That's not what we're
it,
talking about. I don't
they're
think.
gonna get scared that this body wants to raise sales taxes. That ain't what we're in here for. All we want is the grant to do the master plan, and whatever happens in the master plan through hearings is beyond us, okay? Tonight, okay, that's all we're interested in.
Right, we were just talking about what that was, I was just addressing
So
the part
Mr.
about the fair share
the
stuff.
grants was
Heard
gonna
about
Well,
that.
put the
I'm
plan
talking about
together.
What we need to do
That ain't.
is
but that
focus
ain't-
on the
but
top
that
of the
ain't-
watershed.
But that ain't what we do it,
So,
okay?
Mr. Chairman, what this $500,000 grant request that we have created this white paper to give,
What's that?
to participate in the application process, then, if, depending on what kind of an award we get, we would, at someone, whether it be this body or the council, would hire, like, someone,
Consultant.
a consultant
Have a
to,
public hearing.
to do, well, prior
Put
to
a
the
plan
public,
together.
put prior to the public hearing, to establish what we have, how our parish is laid out, the watersheds, the, what, and where the problems are, address, where our blockages are, where our flow is stopped up or whatever, what our needs are. And then out from there, we would have the public hearings with with maps and, whatever information where the people would say, yeah, but I live on this street and it does this over here. And
Right.
that
Well,
committee.
that's what the public hearings will be for.
Right,
People
and
to
then-
come out and say those things.
Right, and then
Um,
from there, a decision would be made, and then we can say, okay, the parish can decide, how do we want to fund this then?
Right.
If you want us to do this, this, and this, then
Right.
that's,
Well, that's-
would be the
that's-
decision.
One of the
And it's
biggest things-
self-government, it's
that's
not
down the road.
mandated, government on you, it's what do you want as a public after you
This
see the
plan's gonna
problems.
tell us how much it's gonna cost.
Right.
So that's what we need to know as a council, what's it gonna cost? And then we gotta figure out how can we fund that?
Let
Have
me,
y'all looked at the end where the water goes, like on our end?
That's where the watershed.
At the same time, what you gotta consider is when we're flooding, Ascension Parish is pumping on top of us.
Right.
We getting that water, plus the water coming from Livingston,
Right.
Dillon.
Well, all that
And the
would
water
be-
has nowhere to go.
See, all those things
stopped
are
up on
coming
it
up
right
when
now.
you do the master
Yep.
Like
plan.
Walpole, that's all stopped up. I was telling him that the other
Now,
day.
you go to the hearings and that's what you will say.
Yeah.
Okay, if I go to hearing, that's what I would say, something, but when
It's
we
got to
get
have
to
a place to
that
go.
point, let me,
That's where the study would be.
Let me-
The actual
It's
watershed
just,
study.
all we're asking for is a $500,000 to do the master
Study.
drainage plan study, period. That's all the white papers are for, to give Martin Harrell a document that he can do the application. Now, let me bring y'all up to speed on the things that he said and timetables and so forth. He was okay with both of the white papers, okay, to get the process started on the grant request. He said he would be ready to go as soon as the federal, whether it's HUD or what other federal agency it is, and the state opens up the application period starting as early as April the 1st of this year. And he'll have the application ready to submit it, okay? And actually, we're gonna ask for more than what we're talking about tonight, okay? We might get more, but we're gonna ask for more. So, never know. He said the process back and forth, he'll send it in, and maybe they'll have some questions and send it back, and you'll answer those questions, and you send it back in. But I was kind of excited. He said he really feels confident that both grant requests will be completed by the end of the year. With both grants will be awarded. That's good.
So the 500 we asking for, that's not to actually do the drainage, that's just for the study?
That's just for the
Exactly.
study.
Just for the
Study,
study.
that's study, nothing.
Nothing else.
That's for what I
And
described.
then that plan will address all the
It
flooding
may
issues.
cost more than 500,000 to do that.
It'll
Oh, yeah.
address
Yeah.
all the
Do the
flooding
actual
issues that
plan.
you've been talking about.
If you can do the whole parish, everything,
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what we're trying
you
to
may
figure
talk
out.
3-4 times that,
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
more.
Well, that's where the scope of
Your
work
area
comes
too.
in. Whatever the amount of money
Well,
is,
that's
that's
not
what
a
the scope
one-time
of work will
cost,
be.
too. That's why the scope of the plan,
Mm-hmm.
getting that scope, we'll know what,
Right.
to get it up to speed and then to maintain it, kind of to Jeff's point earlier.
Mm-hmm.
We do have some canals and things now that if the engineer wants to do a measurement of how fast that needs maintenance, like you said, going from year to year, that would be helpful. But that's kind of what he was talking about. I think in the scope of maintenance. In the plan, we have to address maintenance. You can't just go clean a canal one time and it's finished.
And
Wait
all
for
of
somebody
them
to call
addressed
you.
in the master plan
Right.
itself.
Right.
That's why we asked them for 5.
Yeah.
Let me just share with y'all, and I was around when the parish done the original 2013 master plan. Was you weren't on the council? You were. You was part of that. Julie was. Was you part of the original master plan input and
No, sir.
hearing? Well, I was on the planning commission, still am at that time, and I was the chairman. And we had 3 public hearings in the building next door. One of them was 3 hours long with Mr. Winston from Associates from Boulder, Colorado, and the lady from Baton Rouge who represented the engineering company out of Baton Rouge, who was the liaison for Winston Associates. But they had about 15 public hearings all around this parish on the master plan.
Right.
So when we go back and we ask for $250,000 plus on updating the master plan, I would envision you're gonna have more hearings. Now, I don't know whether you're gonna have 15, but you need public hearings. And I'm thinking that updating that plan is gonna have to have public hearings. Don't you think, Jeff?
Yep.
How
Our
many?
biggest thing is drainage and zoning.
I don't know. And the information, when Miss Lynn Maloney, Mudica, and she come and spoke to us, actually, I think our first meeting about how much money we needed. Updating the master plan was not that difficult and some changes. And that money there would include hiring a consultant to update the land map. Y'all saw the land map. Updating the land use maps to possibly implement zoning, but that money will not, I don't know how zoning will be implemented. I don't know who's gonna do it. It might be the council, it might be a consultant that does it like the first time. They might give us a role, I don't know. But that's what that's all. Anyway, he said that, Mark said that, by the end of the year or before, a little after, should have our grants. Now, what the process after that is, whether it's given to the council and the council hires somebody, to do that. You know more about that than I do, Mr.
I mean, that'll be a collaboration. I mean, we all have to work together on that, figure
I
out
know,
what's best for the parish.
I know that the parish government Mr. Layton has to hire a full-time planner. Probably, as soon as we start the process, huh?
I don't know, I think that's what we're gonna have to
Well, we'll.
have to discuss with him on that and see.
Sure. Well, I've talked to him about it. He said he's prepared to do that when it's necessary.
Yeah.
I would think if Mark thinks that by the end of the year we could get the grants, then we need to be kind of getting our ducks in a row in preparation for that, not waiting, and saying, now we have it, what do we do? I think we need
Right.
Yeah.
to be proactive in getting our stuff together so we can hit the ground running when the funding's available.
In that light,
ahead.
you're saying here that someone had, an engineer had agreed to bring the abbreviated scope.
This is abbreviated.
How soon has that person, did they give you
He
a
would have it ready in
time
2
frame?
weeks.
Okay,
2 weeks
so
from-
at this point, that
2
seems to be
weeks from
step
last
one.
Monday.
Okay, so within a week or so, you ought to have that in your hand to be able to put with this document. I think at this point, is there anything else that this committee would like to, add or amend, as you said, to this? Or is everybody happy with this document moving
Well, I
forward?
I
think
think this
he
is
was happy
good.
with what we gave him.
Okay,
And
so
we-
we're
and we
waiting on that
done had
engineer's.
We didn't leave that open to do any more discussion on
Okay.
it. We were through with it,
Okay.
and I worked early and late to
Right.
get it done.
So
but,
we need the engineers,
he says this is all we need. He was happy with it.
so then out from there, as he applies for this, hopefully by April 1st, then what else, where do we go? What other decisions?
Well,
do
he
we
said
make?
if the application period starts, and if it starts April the 1st, he'll submit it, but it might be a few months later. It's when the application period starts. It might not be April the 1st, it might be May or June, I don't know. He don't know, but he said he'll be ready.
And so do we need to have a plan, as you said?
Okay, you need to start getting one.
Um,
And
And
my,
what does our
my
plan need to look
suggestion
like?
would be that each person on this committee get with their councilman, I'm sorry, Kay,
I know.
but
I
get
mean,
with their
you got somebody you
councilman.
can, you know, suggest to come my way?
Yeah, and start talking with them and getting ideas, you know, for your district. What's the need for your district so that when you start working as a body, you kind of got the needs of each district to where you can figure out. I mean, you might wind up having one need that everybody has.
Are
Okay,
you
that's number
talking
one.
about-
We all need that, you know, and
Are you talking about drainage issues?
Yes,
or-
drainage
or-
issues,
or
to where you can-
issues Or what?
be ready to start putting a plan together when we do get this
For
grant.
drainage.
For drainage,
Well, I'll mention that on the 27th when I
Yeah.
go before the council.
yeah.
That's a good idea. Yeah, well then they'll have a while to think about that, huh? Any other questions about the white papers or Mark Harrell or where we're going? Any
Well, you
other-
said the bottom says will reduce flood insurance rates. That's for the whole parish, or
Say that again?
number 14 on the paper?
But once a master plan, I believe what he's talking about is once the master plan.
That's
study
one
is
of the
completed,
goals,
then
is to
that's-
be able
that's
to
the goal.
reduce rates.
Once we get the
Drainage
drainage
not like
working
it.
right, then,
Yeah.
then, there'll be less chance of flooding in turn.
14
reduce rates.
is on the drainage plan.
Yeah.
Why it's happening backwards. A lot of people seem to think that, you could that's a FEMA thing, you couldn't, reduce flood insurance rates, that wouldn't come from State Farm or Allstate and like that would come from FEMA. So FEMA sets the flood rate,
Right.
the flood insurance rate, not Allstate. He didn't seem to think that would,
So they're thinking about fixing the drainage is going to lower it.
I don't know.
What about the rating system, the
I don't
FEMA
know.
rating
Yeah,
system?
they
That's
have,
where
they have a
like-
rating system that they go by,
Yeah,
and,
it only goes so
yeah,
much.
FEMA
but-
does. Because even when we were having the discussions on the field dirt limit, that impacts it.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that we give them that shows we're trying to
We're
make
trying
it
to go
better, it
forward.
impacts it, it helps.
Mm-hmm.
So every little bit helps.
I would think that would come into the discussion for the plan, that, maybe recommendations for ordinances that might benefit after we have the engineering work done, and the, projects that might need to be done, how some ordinances might be able to be implemented by the council that would benefit the
Exactly.
drainage.
And we're gonna have quite a few that's gonna take a lot of time and thought, 'cause, I mean, you know, we've already touched on the field dirt once before, but we almost have a line that goes through the parish with that interstate, and it could be two different, I mean, that's why we need zoning. That's to help us with that on
Also, why
what,
we need the master plan to look at those things for
Yes.
us.
That's right.
And to have the public hearings and have the input from the public.
It's not
But-
an easy fix, no matter,
Well,
I mean, even
No.
with the plan, it's still not
I
an easy
think
fix.
it's an elephant that we have to eat one bite at
That's
a
right.
time, and we just have to understand, you know, why we're getting this, asking for this money, and how we're gonna go about, you know, when we can't get ahead of ourselves.
You know,
you
the
know.
elephants
That's
are
right.
pretty big, you know.
It's a
well,
lot.
I mean, my biggest thing is I wanna be able to start at the south and work my way up the parish.
Cleaning canals
Clean.
and stuff.
Cause right now,
I
everything that's
really wanna
funded
hear
is
from
north,
the engineers.
nothing south.
That's
Well,
what I think.
when you get to the master plan, it's south, then all that one.
Right.
You'd be the first to speak on it, huh?
Mhm.
You gotta clean the bottom of the funnel in order for it to
Don't
drain down.
mind speaking.
You gotta clean it out.
I always bring
Well,
my boy
and
Scooter.
like you said, you have to partner with what the other parishes are
Yeah.
doing. And I
On top of
think,
it.
I wanted to bring that up earlier, because I think there's already some communication between, maybe you know about that, you all know about that, but there's some relationship with Ascension Parish and St. John and some other parishes to be sure they're not affecting us, maybe even a lawsuit or something.
Maybe so.
Yep. There's discussion, but not good discussion.
I was gonna say,
But-
I don't know if you call that collaboration.
Yeah.
Well,
We're trying to stop what they're wanting to do. you know, which is pump their water
Well,
on.
I don't really know anything at all about it, other than what I might read in the paper. But it was my understanding that there was an agreement reached, actually, and so, you know, it'd be nice to know. And
As long as
maybe
they're
this
not
committee-
building that levee, there's probably an agreement been reached.
I
But
know during 16, I lived there.
That's
During
the big thing.
16, when them pumps got to capacity, our water would it just stopped. It just kept rising, rising. When they couldn't pump no more, the water stayed where it was at. But as it was pumping, it kept coming up and coming up and coming up.
That makes sense.
I was there in 16.
Let me tell you all something.
I sure would like that interstate
I had, did
dam
y'all-
broken out too.
Did everybody see the Livingston Parish News, y'all, the latest copy? Have y'all seen that? I give Judy.
I have.
You seen that?
Yeah.
Well, I had a meeting with, Mr. McHugh David about 2 months ago, maybe 3 months ago and it was a good, long, productive meeting over at CC's Coffee House, and, I shared with him what went on in the year 2001 when we were pushing so hard for the Judah Road interchange. And we had a group called Citizens in Action, and Judah Norris was on that committee. And we would meet at Joe Harrell's Hardware, and Mr. Mike Dowdy he come to every meeting. He helped us get Judah interchange, I can tell you. And I told young McHugh that we should have renamed that interchange the Mike Dowdy interchange, because he was so instrumental in helping us. And here McHugh is doing this, and we painted the picture for him that with not one new road in Livingston Parish in over 100 years besides the I-12 system. And I gave him the picture of the old man. Everybody have a picture? I gave you one, didn't I? No, I think everybody has. No, Julie has one over there. That guy's name is John Allen Richardson. And that picture was taken around 1921. It was on Highway 190 near Holden, right at Holden. And in the background, you can see the railroad tracks and the telegraph poles. The railroad was built in like 1910, and the highway was built in like 1920, and that's 1921. That picture is in the Livingston Parish History book. If y'all had a copy, and other pictures. And I showed that to Mr. McHugh, and he is being so helpful. That's I think that's funny myself. The old race car drivers, you know. And I did thank him the other night for doing that.
Well, and if you haven't seen the article includes the road list that we
Yeah.
submitted to the council and that they adopted and actually funded, and we're, it's a very positive article about what we're doing.
But that article was online too the week before, but it was in last Thursday's issue in the hard copy. But he took way back then, I think it was Mike Dowdy, went to a public hearing on the roundabouts in Walker, and somebody took a picture of me, and he put that's what that picture is. I was talking to DOTD in 2016 about why those roundabouts were good or bad, okay? So I want to tell you, I really do thank Mr. McHugh for doing what he's doing and supporting what we're trying to do, okay? So, y'all see him thinking too, okay? So, anyway, I'm gonna give y'all a picture.
Okay.
You have one? You don't
No, sir, I don't have one.
Anyway, he's given us a lot of good articles, and he's been really helpful. New business, we talked about last month about getting some speakers in to talk to us from municipalities that have done zoning, okay? Kayla was gonna get us somebody from Central, but that person could not meet on Tuesday nights. It was a conflict with us. I said, well, I don't have a problem in meeting twice once a month, just to accommodate that person to come over, and if that's all you're gonna talk about. Yeah, I don't have a problem with that. If y'all, it's up to y'all, or we can go on to maybe Walker or Denham or Tanko Perry, I don't know, y'all tell me. You know of anybody else that does zoning, and, Walker does it, Denham does it.
Walker, Denham, Livingston.
Livingston does it. Well, we could start bringing them in the next meeting and start hearing what works and don't work and how the process works, okay?
St. Tammany has
Um, and the other person
I
from
would think,
Central.
I mean, most municipalities have zoning. Everywhere.
Right.
I mean, most municipalities have.
I
But I'm
think the
saying
person from
parish-wide.
Central would have been
Yeah,
really good.
Parish-wide might be hard to find.
Because they were just went through zoning and they would share that experience with us.
Yeah, that's what, we need to find someone that's done it recently.
Okay,
Because,
would y'all
It seems like they've done
consider,
it well too.
our meetings was, we're just not gonna move them from the second Tuesday anymore. We said that night or nothing.
Why don't you just call a special meeting and whoever can attend, when he is available?
We could try to get somebody
Well, I might
else.
send out an email and give them, let's talk to that person and see if they will come and what nights they can come, and send out an email to everybody and see what you can do and see if it's a conflict for you. That okay?
And that person, they may have someone else, they say, look, I can't make it on that Tuesday, but this person here in the city could come instead.
Yeah, well, I think that, it'd be nice to get that person though, and I'd rather work around them if possible.
Mhm.
I don't remember, I think that it was the past mayor, was it Mayor White in
No,
Central? Do
I
y'all
don't know.
remember?
No, Junior, what was it, what's Junior's last name as the mayor?
The original, the first, when they first,
Central.
were incorporated.
I don't remember.
That's who I think she was talking about.
About 4 years ago.
No, it was longer than that. I think.
I don't know, but that person's supposed to have good knowledge about
Yeah,
implementing zoning.
maybe it was.
So are y'all willing to have a special meeting? If we talk
I mean-
about just that, let that person come and talk?
Mr. Gerald, my suggestion would be, let's do a little research, a little Google research, and see if we can find somebody that would be accommodating our schedule. And if it doesn't work out, then we could
So
try
we
to get.
move on. I can call somebody starting tomorrow at Walker and Dillon Springs.
Well, I mean, that's inside our parish. If we could find somebody outside of our parish
Yeah.
that has a whole parish that does zoning, I mean,
Right.
that would be the most helpful to
Well,
us,
we've
because that's
already
what we're
done-
doing.
We've already done one. We got the gentleman out of Ascension Parish that implemented zoning. He come
Right.
spoke to us like last July for an
Yes,
hour
sir.
or so about how they done zoning in East Ascension or Ascension Parish. So we've done
Mm-hmm.
one.
But he wasn't current, the current person doing the zoning.
Well,
He had started working and then had a conflict with the parish president or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't doing it anymore.
well, I don't know. Dillon's bigger than Walker. No, Walker's bigger than Dillon now, right?
almost.
What are your numbers?
Almost. People wise.
No.
I know I was in both places today, and I can tell you definitely there's a lot of motion going on in Walker. A lot of motion going on in Albany.
That new school bringing a lot of people to Walker too.
Oh, I know, and the big
I mean,
presence.
we saw it
fund.
happen with Live Oak. They
Absolutely.
built theirs and everybody, and now building at Walker and they all coming to Walker.
Well, and moving the presence onto Highway 190 too.
Yeah.
That's done a lot.
Yeah,
Well, you have vision.
The first week of school.
You have visionaries
50
leading these
students
schools now.
had it moved
Right.
into
That has
the area
changed.
because First week of school.
I'm so excited.
Denham has not done it, and I hate that for the road,
Right.
and I still live there. You
Well,
know, but there's
I-
a whole vision that was brought in and implemented, and that school has taken on, you know, and that's what you want to see, like, wow. You know, of course, people are trying to move that way. I mean, again, part of normal economic growth is either through the economics or the education, the different draws. That's what brings it.
Well, that is another need for this master plan. Because, as more people are coming, we need to be prepared with the roads, with the drainage, with, the land
Yeah.
use.
Land use.
If it all becomes subdivisions and we have no opportunity for commercial and tax revenue base, you know.
It used to be that Denham Springs was the center of population that lived in the parish, but that has changed now. It's near Walker. But if you go back and you look at all the four-lane road projects, except for Walker South, every one of them is in Denham Springs. All four-lane projects except the one going to Watson.
Yep.
Every one is in Denham Springs. Okay? So we need more roads this way. Walker needs, you know, there's one road that we did not put on the list, and I don't know, is if you go north of Walker, 447, my God, they got traffic going up that way.
Well, I think they fixing to do a roundabout at Arnold Road
Arnold Road and
in
447.
447.
We need it.
Well, that would be good, but the traffic that from Walker.
I know they did the
intersection-
studies on it, so, I mean, I know they're looking at it, because that intersection is horrible.
That is much needed.
Well,
Right where you live
I
at.
I know all about it. It backs up so far north and south.
I mean, it's all the way back to west side, what's
I
it?
don't know how we
Levi.
missed, but I don't know, we need to go back and include it, but we go back and talk to the MPO members about roads. We talk to them about that, because it needs to go past the railroad. You need a four lane, maybe to the park, I'm not sure.
Well, I talked to Senator Dale Erdy last year about it, and he had said they were doing studies, looking at doing a roundabout at that intersection, which I would think if they looking at that one, they're probably also looking at the one at Cane Market. I mean,
You gotta keep it flowing and just stop.
yeah, to keep them flowing.
But Gerald, that is not in the economic corridor.
Yeah,
No, them
it
two
is.
are not.
That, from Walker intersection, Florida Boulevard north, past the railroad track, yes, that is.
He's not talking about, he's not talking about going up to Courtney Road. He was talking about going 4-lane up to the railroad
At
track.
least to the park, or Dollar General, whatever's there. That's a mile, give or
Yeah.
take. We didn't put that on there, and that's, and then we met with the city of Walker officials, and they didn't mention it. But that's important.
They got that big apartment complex that just opened there
Yes.
too.
Oh,
There's a lot of
It's
traffic right
crazy
there.
amount of traffic. Well, what happens, that traffic there on the north side of 190, then it backs up down on the south side of 190, going back toward the interstate. It's, yeah, you're right, that is,
Told you, we need that 449 tied into the interstate.
That's right.
That's all we need.
that's it. Then we need a roundabout at the other end of Courtney.
I was, what our road projects is widening Florida Boulevard from Denham Springs to Walker. And I talked to Senator Erdy a couple of months ago. He said the state did that and done a feasibility study from Denham Springs to Livingston. Well, I've been calling and calling. I can't get it.
Can't find it?
No one answered their phone, or they won't get back with you. I don't know. Do y'all have any suggestions how to get this feasibility study?
Have you talked to Capital Region Planning?
No, I ain't talked to them. I've been talking to the state highway department.
I'd call Capital Region Planning and see,
Well, I was told Hammond had it, then I talked to Hammond, oh no, that's in Baton Rouge over there. Let me give you that person's name and number, and I called, I ain't never got nobody answer that phone.
well, speaking of
I'm
roads.
trying
as far
to
as
get that feasibility.
Going
study.
forward with this list that, the council has approved, is there, what do we do with this now? Are we going to are we gonna reach out to Capital, Region Planning Commission? Are we
Well,
gonna go to the MPO
You
meetings?
used to go to all these meetings with us, I think the next step on the road projects that's in this book right here, actually there's 13 projects, is to go back and have next set of meetings with the MPO members.
That's
So
what I'm
those are
saying.
the ones that are gonna get you the money for Livingston Parish. That's the Metropolitan Planning Organization, and that consists of the parish president, the Mayor Walker, and Dell. And we've already met with all three of them on the road project. So I would suggest that we go back and meet with those three again, let them know where we're at, and get their support in requesting these funding for these road projects through CRPC. Now, in the meeting we had with the mayor of Denham, he was kind of really excited about it. He says, when you get the parish council to approve the resolution, come back and see me. And I will start pushing CRPC
Well,
That was your mayor.
that's where we are now. That's time to
So-
do that.
Yeah, that's the whole, but it's time to do that. So
Okay.
that would be the next, try to get planners in that done planning in the next meeting, but let's start going to the MPO meetings. Anybody wanna go with me? I'll be glad to have y'all.
Do they still have them at the Blue Bonnet Library? Do you
No,
know
I'm
when
talking
they
about the
are?
MPO members.
Oh, to meet with the members. Oh. How about
Anybody
our,
wanna volunteer?
You-
You up?
That's
Did I
definitely
hear
too
you
broad.
volunteer? You volunteered to go to Mr. Layton, wouldn't you, one
I
time?
did.
Oh, did I
So
hear
if you
you
need,
volunteer again?
if you need me to, I will. You just have to give me lots of notice.
All right. Put your dry cleaning on hold, huh?
Put my dry cleaning on hold.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Judy. We need to do that. I don't know, the long term is that I think the mayor Denham, he said he's gonna push it, then let's help him push it. Now, I don't know, we should go to all the MPO meetings and CRPC meetings
well,
years ago.
the
when you were
reality
on.
is though, we had one project. And we were, you
Yeah.
know, asking for the funds and the support for that one project. So here, you know, are we on item number 2? Is that what we're
No.
working on?
Well, all of them by
To the
priority.
MPO and
No, all
Capital
of them
Regional
by
Plan.
priority. I just flat out asked Mr. Mark Harrell to find us $121 million.
Well, while he's
Why-
looking,
why
stop
not?
there. While he's trying to get that for us,
What?
are you,
Look.
is the situation that Cook Road is funded, you know, ready to start? We can certainly be there and thank them and be in support of that.
Of course.
But then is it item 2 now, you know, where it stands, 100% complete with wetlands and engineering and feasibility? Now, you know, will Capital Region
I've
Planning?
heard, on the Juban extension, I think the people that making a decision on building that road want the overpass for safety reasons. If there's no overpass in Livingston Parish from Hammond to Central Thruway for first responders to get across, ambulances, fire trucks, et cetera. So I think that it's gonna be built, the overpass is gonna be built. I don't care one way or the other, but I think they wanna do that. And that's gonna be around $12 million, give or take. So before the meeting the other night here, I asked Mark Harrell to find us some safety money to get the overpass because it's about safety. He said, well, you know, get going on the project, get it moving, and then I'll ask for it. Okay. Why not? So,
Well, if you have the support of your MPO members, then we need to be at Capital Region Planning and we need
you
to.
go talk to MPO members too. That's that would be the next step for me. And, your mayor said he would introduce this to CRPC.
Perfect,
He would introduce it at the MPO.
perfect,
Your mayor said that.
perfect.
You got a good mayor, you know that?
That's-
So that's the next step, MPO. We're gonna start meeting with all 3 of them individually again. We've already done that one time.
My personal opinion on the zoning, and maybe I'm out of line saying this, but that may be getting us a little spread out. You know, we have this, and we don't need to let this sit on the side. And so it may be that we need, you know, to really concentrate our efforts on trying to make some of these things happen, get something
I agree
done.
100% because there is nothing we can do on zoning. We
And
can
so,
have- we
and so
can
to
have-
have someone come in, or, I mean, we can certainly look at
We
that.
can
or-
have speaker after speaker
Yeah.
come like we've had
Right.
before,
I
and
want
that don't
action.
get you nowhere.
I
except
want something we can
you want
move
it.
on.
But we can do a lot, and it's already been done. The council's already done
That's
a
what I'm saying,
resolution.
your wheels are turning
And
here,
so
so,
we got
and
to-
your funding is in your budget, so let's concentrate on this.
Nah, that's what we're doing. That's all we can do, really, except sewer, maybe.
Well, we're gonna wait for the master plan and the, funding for these
Oh.
things, but we don't have to wait on that for this.
Well, and kind of your point, the ball can get rolling for the application, for the
Absolutely.
funding of the grant money,
Yes.
and then we can
Yes.
be working on this in
Yes,
the
there
meantime.
you go.
We're already rolling on that. And like Judy said, we can chew bubble gum and walk at the same time, some of us can. I can't.
Yeah.
Can you, Jeff?
I think I do all the time.
Couple things is, what else do you think this group, this committee needs to do besides other things? I know a couple months ago, the ordinance committee referred the sewer ordinance to us. We never really discussed that at all.
I think it's an appropriate something for us to look
We
at.
didn't discuss it, of course, I'm all for it, I'm all for discussing it.
Did
I
you
think
get-
there's gonna be some discussion in the ordinance committee on that. So,
Do you think they would want to send it back to us and let us look at some of these ordinances and give our opinion on
I think there's gonna be something done in the ordinance committee on that.
it? Okay, so leave it alone.
I think you can see what happens in the ordinance committee.
Soon?
Soon. There's some stuff that we definitely need to look at, figure out what's going on, and see what we need to change.
So, Mr. Chairman, you're kind of asking about what we think our next step should be. So if we ask for these two grants, and Mr. Mark Carroll is thinking that we ought to receive these grants by the end of the year, we know what scope of work we would use for the drainage master plan, and then the other is updating the master plan is the other part. I'm all about, I don't like wasting taxpayer money, and I feel like we did the master plan in 2013 and it sat on the shelf, and then now we're updating it, getting money to update it. I think that we ought to have a concrete, starting working with the council, from direction with the council or from us, and then bring it to them. Start with concrete steps on kind of how to implement the master plan after we get it updated.
After we get the grant?
After we get the grant and it gets
Yeah.
updated, I think it ought to be sitting there ready. Whenever it's ready, however that works, however that looks. If it comes from the council and we get the direction from the council and they tell us what to do, then we get the concrete steps at that point. Or if they want us to work on it and say, these are the first steps that we think you ought to start in the implementation, then,
I mean, I can tell you the first step's gonna be zoning.
okay, so
And
what does that look like?
What they're
Jeff?
gonna want is, what's the rules? So for a rural area, we're gonna zone this rural, what's the rules for a rural area? If it's residential, what is the rules?
How do you describe,
commercial,
what is the
how do-
definition?
Yeah, so that when we do get ready to zone, we know, okay, when we tell you this is residential, this is all you're gonna be able to do here. This is residential. This is light industrial, this is commercial.
And then you know that things are gonna come up to change classifications. So what are the rules of changing
That
classifications?
will all be established by.
Denham's going through that right now, so
That's right,
you can watch Denham's fighting it right now with the old concrete plant.
that's right.
So,
Who makes the rules? Is that the councilman or
I think that's a good
where
project.
the rules come from?
You,
well, that's gonna be the
That's the
master
master
plan.
plan.
Master plan's gonna tell us what the zoning,
The
what it
master
is.
plan that we have right now, at our last meeting, I don't think anybody was here except Gerald and myself and Miss Eileen and Kayla. And I brought some information out of this document that we have that I think kind of addresses what you're talking about, Kay, which would be, what it's tasking, what needs to be, what the tasks would be to prioritize the actions in the master plan
Right.
that are already there. Number one, land use, zoning, and an orderly development to avoid incompatible uses. And using the word land use instead of zoning, just because
that's right.
sounds better. It does.
It's helpful, not infringing.
Right.
Then wastewater, and of course that being sewage. Transportation, prioritizing these things, roads, drainage, ditches and flooding, domestic water, wells and clean water, emergency preparedness and hazardous mitigation for disasters, coastal management would be conservation. All of those things, if we do a major update to these, you know, we're gonna need the public input, as Gerald said. And all of those things really are safety. And I think it's important that we let the public know that any decisions that we make is for their safety. Right. You're protecting your investment with land use, your health and your living conditions with wastewater and sewage, your access for emergency vehicles, improving congestion, reducing flooding, law enforcement with disasters, and then responsible citizenship, with coastal management. So out from there, after we get that priority, then hiring a full-time planner, which by that time the money is here, you know, and that person may or may not be educated in the field of planning. Livingston Parish may just need somebody that's just a manager to, you know, kind of help that. I don't know. But to work with the parish government and the municipalities on the rules. Find out what Denham's doing, what Walker's doing, what other areas are doing on land use and orderly growth, on transportation needs, on drainage, sewage, all of the things that I discussed. Then number 2, it says, is to develop a GIS to track the development and the land use data and drainage features, like you all were talking about, the watersheds and such as that, both natural and man-made, and then develop major transportation plan with connectivity, where you're not just doing this road, but how does that flow, just like the drainage situation, and work to create a vision for the sewer districts. You know, really that's a vision at this point, with the obstacles that might arise and the opportunities that are available, and then co-op agreements. Then inform the public of the changes that you have, and then how to adhere to those changes and follow the parish codes and on major street plans and such as that.
When Miss Lynn Maloney moved to King, and the point blank asked her a question, how much does the master plan have to be updated? She said it would be minor because of demographic changes, but everything that's in that plan will stay in that
Exactly.
plan. Nothing's gonna change.
Exactly.
Everything that you're reading is gonna stay the same.
That's right.
So,
But these are the tasks that we need to be doing. That's what I'm saying.
well, we can talk about transportation and things like that, and that's what we've been doing.
Some of those things that we've been doing.
Right.
Absolutely. I said some of those things we're addressing, but we haven't had a checklist, you know, but you've been addressing certain things is going. So that's just having a checklist, basically.
And the question then becomes, is that what the council, the parish council, you know, do they want to set, you know, the prioritized list? You know, take those 9 items, prioritize them, or do you want us to bring it to you? You know, we think or is that set by, okay, we got money for this, which it would be. You know, we can find a grant for this, and so let's move this one up. Has to be a fluid document that can change.
Well, I think we have been prioritizing it to some degree. We're pushing for updating the master plan to
Yeah.
do
Do the
updating
drainage.
and do zoning if that's so the parishes do that. And the other thing is infrastructure within the economic corridor. We started talking on roads.
Right.
I would like to start pushing sewer in the middle of the summer. The master plan calls for a group to get together with all the people in the parish that own sewer system, all the mayors and sewer districts, and have a sit down with them and tell them the master plan. And that's part of the sewer, that's part of the infrastructure. But it, just like the other night at the council meeting, there was a lot of discussion about the sanitation officer
Reinspection.
doing some things that people didn't like to do. I don't know, I mean, how that's gonna play out, but my goal is we need to clean this parish up. And how we get there, I don't know. But you can go into some districts and all you see is green in the ditch, and that's already raw, untreated sewer. These old systems are not working. I'm not talking about rental property, switching owners, turning lights on and turning off. I'm talking about existing landowners that had their lights for 20 years. The systems don't work.
Right, and there's
They don't
nothing
work.
that
What's the
says they have to be
enforcement of that?
re-inspected.
There's no enforcement of that?
Well, unless you have to go back and get a permit. So most of the time, someone that owns a house, so they built a house 30 years ago, they put the system in that was required. They've never had their lights turned off, nobody's coming back to inspect it.
Do you,
You know, but these landlords are what's bringing it to light, saying, but every time we change renters,
It's a very good
we
point.
are getting them re-inspected, and sometimes they're having to pay 6 times a year.
So are you saying that's what when you said the ordinance committee was gonna take?
That'll be what starts.
well,
I like the re-inspection.
but see, rental property is just a small part.
Until
I mean, you got
everybody starts
apartments that
complaining
rental.
because
Well,
Yeah,
I think what it's
right.
gonna lead into is
Another
having
tax, another.
inspections be good for so long.
Yeah, get the elevation.
In any house.
In any
You've been there 20 years, it's
Yeah.
time to get
It's
it.
time to get it inspected.
Well, I don't, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, probably $300-400.
That's how you gonna clean it
That's the
up.
only way we're gonna do
How, what was that?
It's gonna lead into inspections happening for everybody.
You're right.
But you gotta figure out what, you know,
Well,
is it every 2 years, every 5 years, every 10, you know, what's that?
Going back to this document, on the, continuing on what I had, the notes that I had, it was to work with elected officials and administration. It's very valuable to have you at this meeting.
I was thinking.
Uh-huh. And then my list here on that said land use, create self-determination process for each district to guide development. 2, establish permitting policies that adhere to the master plan. And then establish budgeting policies to adhere to the master plan. Establish a wastewater district's vision with the obstacles. Revise your wastewater ordinances. Establish major street plan. Establish ordinances for interconnectivity. Adhere to parish standards. So all of those things, and, you know, create a combined permit process. All of these things, to me, would be valuable for your ordinance committee to take up with how you, instead of being reactive to the problems, let's follow this master plan suggestion and go down the
And
list.
I can't speak for all the other councilmen, but I feel like they're all ready to do that.
I do too.
I
The
really
ones
do.
that
I
I've
feel like
spoken
we
to.
have the group
I do
here
too.
that's ready to implement the master plan,
And-
implement zoning, you know, fix our drainage, and they wanna do all that.
Yeah.
Jeff, do you think that, at what point do you think that if department heads are to be involved, or departments? Because basically, when you're talking zoning, every part of the parish has to play a part of that. You know, like the permit department has to change because the permits are gonna be different.
Yeah.
It has to go through zoning, so like who has the zoning, you know, so every part is gonna have to have their input.
I actually feel like it might make it a little
Well,
simpler
no,
for
there's
them.
another document on the.
Yeah,
Because all they're
because it's
gonna have
all
to do
rules.
is look up and see, well, it's on this, so this is what you can do, you're trying to do that, yeah, it fits, you good. You know, we got a lot of stuff that's coming to us, and we're having to figure it out, and
Exactly.
they should already have something laid out telling them what, I mean, you're the permit office here, it tells you in black and white what they can and can't do.
But that goes back to you all setting those ordinances in place that,
And that's, I mean, you know, each department, which I know Sandy would tell you too, is, you know, every department, they see things all day long, every day. So when you bring things up, they can automatically say, well, that's not gonna work because of this, or that will work, or this is where we need help, or, you know, so it's almost important to kind of,
Yeah, so I mean, right now, they get a lot of times where they just say, I don't know, you have to go to the council, see what they say. You know, you get a lot of that,
yeah.
and, you know, I think with the master plan implemented in the rules down, we're
And
gonna
you'll
cut a lot
probably
of that
still,
out.
I mean,
Permit officer gonna
realistically,
know
you'll
what to
probably
tell
still
people.
have that, because
Exactly.
every situation is
All
not
that
the
stuff
same.
shouldn't have to roll up to the
Right.
parish council.
Yeah,
I'm
mean,
a
you're
firm
prob-
believer we need to clean that parish up, sewer.
But you don't wanna make it so expensive that people can't live here anymore, you know?
but Kay, do you first need to decide which areas are going to be what? In other words, rural or you know.
Right.
So, because you can't get to the permitting process until you know which areas are going to be, you know, set aside for certain land uses. To get to that point, don't we need to have public input?
Oh,
Zoning?
absolutely.
You talking about zoning?
Yeah, land use, work.
Land use restrictions?
Creating a self-determination process. If you have a meeting in a certain district and have the discussion of, you know what, guys, would you be interested, and I'm just brainstorming,
Yeah.
but would you be interested in setting aside Florida Boulevard from here to here, a commercial corridor there? And if so, you know, that'll give you X amount of business opportunities. Then out from there, this might be wonderful for a park or a industrial site or whatever all those things
I
are.
mean, so the master
Well,
plan,
let's get our money first, then we can do all that.
yeah,
okay?
I mean, the land map that we
go
have
ahead.
now, that's exactly how that came about, was from those public meetings that were
Right.
done at the time.
Right.
So basically what you're doing is just updating that.
No,
And then
what
at
I'm
that
saying is you
point,
go from there
Yeah.
to the discussions of,
within each council district,
well,
yes.
we haven't brought those, you know, to the public with the proposal of this is going to be zoned that, would you want this to be zoned that way? Their input, and if they do, then we're gonna bring it to
I
you
don't-
to let you vote.
I don't know, that's gonna fall back upon the consultants at the parish harsh, and they got experience in doing that kind of stuff. And they will have, they'll explain all of the rules and what a
Yeah.
rural is, they got all that stuff.
Right.
And I've seen it, okay?
Right.
I know they have it, Winston have it. And then, we'll get there, let's get some money,
Yeah.
okay? All right, anybody got anything else to you they'd like to bring up?
Nope. The only thing I want is, Mr. Jason Inman is gonna be taking my
I hope-
spot
I
on
hope.
here. I will come back as much as I possibly can
We want you to come back.
to
We
put
want
my
you.
input in as much as I can and help as much as I can, but, I'm stretched a little thin right now with all the stuff I got going on, so,
But thank you for
Jason.
coming tonight.
yeah.
It's
I think
definitely
Jason will
beneficial
fit in
when-
good and help us a lot,
When
and,
y'all have a,
you know,
it's definitely beneficial when one of you guys
Yeah.
can be here.
yeah, I would love to be here for all of them.
If you
but-
can answer or either, you know,
I
it
thought
just helps
the
with some
same.
of the directions, you know, with what, it connects that.
You
so
know,
you don't have a,
Jeb, with that, that's a good idea. Mr. Gerald, maybe the next time you go before the council, maybe you could specifically ask if they would be willing to rotate every meeting, one councilman be willing to come. So you don't ever come once every 9 weeks for sure.
You know, initially, we
I mean, 9
had,
months.
initially, we had a lot of
And then
councilmen here.
extras can come
Yeah, they
too,
were
right?
all, we were
Let's do
all
that.
on for a while.
No, but everybody can come,
Yeah.
but for sure we'd have one at
But
each
they
one of
used
these
to
meetings.
come,
Yeah.
and
In the-
Shane
wouldn't that
has
be-
been here many times.
No,
And Gerald
from
McMorris came last time.
But like she
That'd
said,
be
to have
nice if
somebody
they
on
could
the,
do that.
on the
Committed.
council members, it really
On
is
their
good to get
schedule.
their perspective on things, you know, in each.
That would be yeah, we can have them do that. That's a
Okay.
good suggestion.
I'll start
Oh.
talking to them about it too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Scooter and
Shane
Joyce
used to
coming, he was
come.
gonna come
Shane
tonight.
wanted to come tonight.
Anybody got anything
Well,
else?
extras can come whenever they want,
We
but
have at
for
least
sure
one.
one can, and really, we could set aside, I mean, I don't know if we can, but a position at our, you know, table
Yeah.
that,
I mean, all you gotta do is put in the, like we have on our agenda, councilman comments,
right.
you know, and then that way, when it gets to that, whoever's here, y'all have comments y'all wanna
Sure.
bring up or.
But if we could get a
discuss.
commitment from you all to have someone here for every meeting, one of you, then I think, first of all, you all would stay
We can
engaged.
ask them.
Mhm.
And secondly, we
Oh.
would have more information.
Yeah,
Y'all hear a motion to adjourn? Are y'all through?
I'll make that motion.
I need
I'll
a
second.
We got a motion from Mrs. Jeff, he's still on here.
Yeah,
Mrs. Jeff Lord made a motion to adjourn, and we got a second
Casey.
from Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you,
All
sir.
right, thank you, sir.
Is that the way you always done it, Jeff?